The old lighthouse stood, a solitary sentinel, perched precariously upon the edge of a desolate, windswept cliff. Its white paint, now weathered and peeling, revealed the skeletal structure beneath. For years, it had stood guard over the treacherous coastline, its beacon a flickering, unreliable guide for ships. Locals told tales of the lighthouse, whispering of a darkness that clung to it. Few dared to approach after dark, for it was said that the lighthouse was haunted by the souls lost to the sea. The waves crashed against the rocks, a symphony of fury and despair. The wind howled around the tower, a mournful cry that echoed the fate of countless sailors. Inside the lighthouse, dust motes danced in the pale moonlight that filtered through the grime-covered windows. Cobwebs hung in every corner, shrouding the rusted machinery and broken furniture. The air was thick with the stench of salt and decay, a pungent reminder of the relentless power of the sea. The history of the lighthouse was shrouded in tragedy. Local folklore spoke of a fierce storm. A ship, caught in its wrath, dashed against the rocks. The lighthouse keeper, Elias, had watched in horror. Unable to save the crew, their screams echoing in his ears. He spent the rest of his days haunted by their faces, driven mad by guilt. Some say his spirit never left the lighthouse, forever bound to the scene of his failure. Others whispered of a love affair, a forbidden romance between Elias's daughter and a young sailor. Their secret meetings beneath the shadow of the lighthouse ended in disaster. The sailor, lost at sea during a storm, his body never recovered. The daughter, driven mad with grief, took her own life within the tower. Their love, now a curse, forever entwined with the tragic fate of the lighthouse. Over the years, the stories grew. Each retelling added a layer of horror, whispers of strange lights emanating from the tower, unexplained noises echoing from within. The rusty gate creaked open. A young man stepped onto the overgrown path. His name was Thomas, the new lighthouse keeper. He was a writer seeking solitude and inspiration, unaware of the horrors that awaited him. He carried an old suitcase, filled with books and dreams of finishing his novel. The sea breeze tugged at his coat. He shivered, the air strangely colder near the lighthouse. He glanced up at the tower, its windows like vacant eyes watching his every move. A strange uneasiness settled over him, a sense of foreboding he couldn't shake off. He told himself it was just the isolation, the desolate beauty of the place playing tricks on his mind. He had rented the lighthouse from a gruff old man. The man's eyes held a warning. "You'll be alone out there, lad," he'd said, his voice raspy. "Best be careful. The sea ain't the only thing to fear in these parts." Thomas had dismissed it as superstition. He didn't believe in ghosts or curses. He was a man of logic, of reason. He approached the heavy wooden door. The lighthouse was a labyrinth of shadows and echoes. Dust-covered furniture huddled in corners, shrouded in cobwebs. The air was heavy, thick with the smell of dampness and decay. Thomas unpacked his belongings, each creak of the floorboards, each rustle of fabric, amplified in the oppressive silence. He climbed the winding staircase to the lamp room, the heart of the lighthouse, the source of its light and its darkness. The air grew colder as he ascended. He felt a presence, a chill that ran down his spine. The hair on his arms stood on end. The lamp itself was an intricate mechanism of brass and glass, neglected but still magnificent. He traced his fingers over its cold, smooth surface, imagining the hands that had polished it, the eyes that had watched its beacon pierce the night. He felt a connection to the past, to the lives that had been intertwined with this place. As darkness fell, he lit the lamp. The gears groaned and protested, but the beacon flickered to life. Section 5. A ghastly discovery. Days turned into nights. Thomas settled into a routine. At dusk, he would climb to the lamp room, tending to the beacon. Yet, the strange occurrences continued. Whispers in the dead of night, footsteps echoing on the stairs. One evening, exploring the musty attic, he stumbled upon a hidden compartment. Inside lay a wooden chest bound in iron. He spent hours working on the lock. Finally, the lock yielded. He lifted the lid. Inside lay a leather-bound journal. It was the diary of Elias, the former lighthouse keeper. Section 6. The Lighthouse Awakens. As Thomas delved deeper into Elias's journal, the strange occurrences intensified. Objects moved on their own. Doors slammed shut without reason. He felt a constant presence watching him, breathing down his neck. The whispers grew louder, more distinct, morphing into mournful cries and anguished screams. He tried to convince himself it was just his imagination, fueled by the stories and the isolation. But deep down, a primal fear began to take root. One night, a violent storm raged around the lighthouse. The wind howled like a banshee, the waves crashing against the rocks with thunderous force. Thomas struggled to keep the beacon lit, his heart pounding in his chest. As he fought against the elements, he felt the floor vibrate beneath his feet. The lighthouse itself seemed to shudder as if awakening from a long slumber. Section 7. Trapped within the tower. Panic surged through Thomas. He had to escape. He turned to flee, but the door to the lamp room slammed shut with a resounding boom. He rattled the handle, but it wouldn't budge. He was trapped, alone with whatever evil lurked within the heart of the lighthouse. The room grew colder, the air thick with malevolence. He could feel the eyes upon him, watching his every move. The whispers were all around him now, taunting him, threatening him. They spoke of his demise, of his soul joining theirs in eternal torment. He retreated to the corner of the room, his back against the cold stone wall. His eyes darted around, searching for an escape, for any sign of hope, but there was none. Section 8. The horrific truth. As the storm raged outside, a new voice cut through the cacophony of whispers. A voice filled with sorrow and regret. It was Elias, the former lighthouse keeper. He spoke to Thomas, his voice echoing through the chamber, revealing the horrific truth behind the lighthouse's curse. Elias confessed that he had not gone mad. He had discovered the truth about the lighthouse. It was a beacon, not just for ships, but for lost souls. It drew them in, trapped them within its walls, feeding off their despair. He had tried to warn people to keep them away, but no one believed him. They thought him insane. He spoke of the sailor, his daughter's lover, who had perished at sea. His soul, unable to find peace, had become tethered to the lighthouse. It was he who had driven Elias to the brink, whispering in his ear, tormenting him with guilt and grief. The sailor's rage, his sorrow, had infected the very structure of the lighthouse. Section 9. A desperate escape. The weight of Elias's words pressed down on Thomas. He was trapped in a nightmare, caught between the world of the living and the realm of the dead. He had to escape, but more importantly, he had to end the cycle of suffering, to free the trapped souls from their eternal torment. He remembered Elias's journal, the ritual described within its pages. He searched frantically for the book, his heart pounding, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He found it lying open on the floor, the pages rustling in the wind that seemed to be flowing from the walls themselves. As he read the words, a glimmer of hope sparked within him. The ritual was dangerous, fraught with peril, but it was his only chance. He had to gather specific artifacts from within the lighthouse, objects imbued with the essence of the lost souls. Each one represented a life lost, a tragedy endured. He raced through the storm-ravaged lighthouse, the wind and rain lashing at him, the ghostly whispers and cries echoing in his ears. He could feel their presence all around him, their anger, their despair, but also their hope. They yearned for release, for peace. Section 10. The lingering presence. Following the instructions in Elias's journal, Thomas performed the ancient ritual. He arranged the artifacts in a specific pattern on the floor of the lamp room, his hands trembling, his heart pounding in his chest. He could feel the energy in the room shifting, the air growing heavy with anticipation. As he uttered the final words of the incantation, a blinding light filled the room. The lighthouse shook to its core, the sound of screams and cries reaching a deafening crescendo. Thomas shielded his eyes, his body trembling uncontrollably. Then, as quickly as it began, it was over. Silence descended upon the lighthouse. The storm outside had subsided, leaving an eerie calm in its wake. Thomas slowly lowered his hand, his vision returning. The artifacts were gone, the room empty save for himself. He took a deep breath, the air now clear and fresh. The whispers were gone, the presence that had haunted him vanished. He was alone. Section 11. Never truly safe. Thomas left the lighthouse, weary from his ordeal. He carried the weight of the horrors he had witnessed, He would never forget the terror and despair within those haunted walls. His experiences seeped into his writing, adding chilling realism. He never spoke of what truly transpired, knowing no one would believe him. Some places hold a darkness that can never truly be erased. And though the curse was broken, the lighthouse would never be free.